Good morning and welcome to the Growing People podcast. I'm John Losey, and I was hoping to have Fred on here from the start. He's delayed, and I'm hoping that he'll be able to join us at some point in the next little bit as we are exploring coaching models. But I wanted to get on in a timely fashion so that people who are logging in have a chance to listen at least for a little bit. And if Fred can't join us today, we will reschedule and get Fred to have a series of discussions around his experience with coaching in the learning role in organizations and his executive development perspective and philosophy. So if he can join us today, great. If not, look for a series of interviews with Fred coming in the next over the next several weeks. I'm excited to be able to get his thoughts and vision around these things. But this morning, let me talk a little bit about my perspective on coaching models and why it's important to have a shared philosophy and model. I don't have nearly the experience that Fred does in actually, he was at the start of several models that everybody works with and how those were developed and then adopted and changed and perhaps even lost some effectiveness in the replication. For me, and sorry, I'm scratching my nose there. For me, coaching models, there's rarely, and I think Fred would agree with this, there's nothing new under the sun. Most of them are very similar. At least the good ones follow a similar pattern in how they encourage you to help develop people. I had the experience of working with the GROW model. Lance Wilcox, myself, helped form what we called the Eddy model. And then we came across Fred Harburg's fact-based model. And the thing that was more important than anything else was having a shared language to talk about developing people. At one point, we were even thinking about, as we were working inside of a larger organization, of ditching the word coaching because it had such a negative connotation. People would feel that coaching was the first step for getting rid of them, for out the door. You got coached if you were screwing up and you needed to be fixed. And it was such a strong shared meaning behind this concept of coaching as punishment or as fixing that we weren't sure whether we were going to be able to redeem the word or not. But we thought it's such a valuable word and concept that it was worth trying to reclaim the language around coaching. And the first step was to have a shared model, have some sort of approach that everybody shared, that everybody could talk about. Now, it wasn't to exclude other people's experience or approaches to coaching. It was just to have a common language. And I was at a conference all weekend for, it was a doctoral program for leadership, organizational leadership, and they took a transformational leadership approach. And I got in several conversations about creating shared languages so that people could communicate. And I know we've all experienced this where we all are using the same words, but have different meanings. We're actually speaking a different language, even though the words are the same. And it became really important as we were moving towards a development mindset, a coaching mindset, that we shared language around this. And it really, the reason that we are sorting through, we're going to use the GROW model, the Eddy model, the FACT model, and ultimately they were all really similar. The approach, the wording, we went with what was the simplest language, and that fact-based coaching. It was very simple, very similar to GROW, but there was an elegance to it. The other thing that we really appreciated was that the language was just the words. There was a music that we were trying to teach behind the model. And we say music, it's the story we tell often about Mark Twain, and he was experiencing one of his downtimes business-wise. So he had to go back out on the road to remake his fortune by lecturing. and he brought his wife with him, and their relationship was very interesting because she was a Baptist Sunday school teacher, and he not so much. He enjoyed his drinking and his cussing and his raw sense of humor, and his wife was embarrassed by it a lot of the time. And he would get a couple of drinks in him, and then the swear words would just roll off his tongue. He was a poet with cursing. And so one evening before he was going to go on stage, he was fumbling with his bow tie and just having a hard time of it because he'd had a couple of drinks. And his wife could see he was about to erupt in foul language. And she wanted to show him how embarrassing it was. So she stood up to him and said, "You curse word, you blank, you blankety blank, you." And she let off a string of, they were curse words. But he looked at her and he says, "Honey, you got the words, but you just ain't got the music." And too often in my experience, coaching, training people to be better coaches gave them the words, but not the underpinnings, not the empathy, the need for connection, the foundation of relationship that it takes to help somebody develop competency and develop capacity, which is really the goal of coaching. Isn't fixing people. It's helping them become better at what they do, building capacity, building competency. And that's what I really appreciated about the fact-based approach, the fact-based model, was that, yes, it had a nice, frame the opportunity, articulate and assess alternatives, commit to action, and track progress. Very simple, straightforward, easy wording that everybody could grasp, but it was much more than a step-based approach. It was really rooted in a genuine concern for the development of that person. And that's what I really appreciated, and why we ended up adopting in the large organization, why we adopted fact-based language, because it was very important that we all spoke the same language around developing people. Now, we then encouraged people who'd been to lots of different coaching workshops and seminars. Now we could all sit down at the table and speak the same language around those things and bring everybody's best skills to developing people around it. But we could all speak the same language. That's why it was so important that we chose fact. Now, if you're going with, let's say, the GROW model or the Eddie model or some other model that's out there, it's crucial that your organization create a shared language around developing people. Now, my preference is, I think fact is a very elegant model, and I would encourage you to try it out. But if you go with a different model, share that language, create the common ground so that everybody can get on board on growing people. And make sure that it doesn't stay. One of the biggest problems that I saw was a translation error, or the error that happens as you try to replicate something, replication error. So we put out the Eddie model and we trained some people and just let it fly out there. But what happened was it turned this approach that was really about building capacity and helping people not fix them, but help them grow, the Eddie approach. Well, it turned into a mandatory biweekly coaching interaction with a spreadsheet follow-up. And it was very dry, impersonal, and not about their growth at all. That's one of the things I learned as I tried to impact organizations' culture by helping them develop, or even a development mindset or any other cultural shift, was realizing that you really need to guard against the replication error, so that the music isn't lost as it's shared around the organization. And another time we'll talk about the importance of reinforcing the training that you're offering, the learning that you're offering, the growth that you're offering, not just by sending out reminder emails or follow-up courses, or even having people go through the course again, but how is your organization, how is the system and the processes going to support the behaviors that you're seeking to change? That'll be a topic for another day. Right now, I thank you for being part of this, and I want to encourage you, if you're watching this, to check out upcoming podcasts or upcoming broadcasts where Fred and I will talk about everything from how he developed and was involved in the early days of developing and working with some of the most popular coaching models that we have out there. But also, I'm hoping to do a series of interviews where Fred gets to share his experience, long experience in growing people and how that works. This will be the format for it. Fred wasn't able to join us this morning. Something came up for him. And if those of you who know Fred is bouncing around all over the place all the time. So I do believe he is in the country right now. I know he spent a month in Asia over December and into January. So I'll find out a little bit about when he's next available. I apologize he wasn't able to make it this morning, but I hope that you take a look at the Growing People podcast. You check out the different types of videos that are on there. We'll have these live feeds. I've got other interviews with other leaders about their perspective around growing people and growing organizations. I've also got shorter videos that are all about helping people who are involved in leadership and training and development, concept videos that'll hopefully spark discussion. So take a look at the page, take a look at all the different videos that are on there currently. I try and post content either weekly or every other week. There should be more of these live feeds coming up with Fred and with others. So with that, I've been excited to do this. I'm still figuring out this whole live feed approach. I want to do more interviews and I want to hear back from you. So if you have comments, concerns, or ideas that you'd like to see, please comment on this. Go ahead and make the comments, like, subscribe, do all that kind of stuff so that I can continue to offer content and ideas that'll spur you on towards growing people in more effective and more efficient ways. So have a great day. I look forward to hearing from anybody out there who's interested. And with that, until next time, I'm John Losey with the Growing People Podcast.